UNICEF is warning of an unprecedented number of children who are likely to die in Somalia due to drought and famine and without greater immediate action from the international community. Let's speak now to Victor Chinyama, Chief of Communications at UNICEF Somalia. Grateful for your time, sir. Thank you for joining us today. How long has this disaster been brewing in Somalia?
Well, we know that Somalia generally has two rainy seasons, and this started about 2 years ago. And right now, we've had 4 rainy seasons that have failed, and we're looking potentially at a 5th rainy season also failing.
And the impact now, we're warning now of an unprecedented number of children who face death possibly as a result of hunger, malnutrition. But to date, how has this crisis affected children specifically?
So we're seeing it manifesting primarily through the large numbers of children that are affected by malnutrition. And we estimate that by the end of this year, by December, we will have nearly 2 million children that will be malnourished. And out of those, about 500,000 will have severe acute malnutrition, which does require immediate treatment, without which the child is at risk of dying. We are also seeing them displaced because these communities have been stripped of all their livelihoods, and therefore they are forced to move to places where they can find help. And when they are moving in this manner, they are very vulnerable, particularly to diseases like cholera and diarrhea.
You mentioned cholera and diarrhea. I was looking at a statement that you put out where you say, in fact, that severely, acutely malnourished children are 11 times more likely to die from diarrhea and measles than a well-nourished child.
Indeed, because their immunity is weakened, their body systems are so weak, and these children, anything that affects them, any normal child would be able to resist. But with these children, anything that comes, particularly when it's measles or cholera, that really is a death sentence. That just tips them over the edge. And so what we're doing is really to work hard to minimize the risk of disease outbreaks, as well as to put these children on treatment.
And given the high number of Somalis who are displaced both internally and externally, how much does that set of circumstances impact on the ability of an organization such as UNICEF to make sure that help is able to reach those who need it?
The conditions in these camps are quite dire because they are overcrowded, and you see people are just setting up temporary shelters such as tents and so on. Many of these camps do not have basic services such as water and sanitation, and therefore the conditions are quite ripe for severe disease outbreaks. And so what we do with our partners then is to go into these camps and ensure that they are provided with safe and clean water, to also ensure that children, we find children that have malnutrition and immediately put them on treatment. But we're not just worried about the people who have moved. What about those who have not moved? And their conditions might even be much worse than we are seeing. And as you know, Somalia, the challenge is really to be able to access these areas because of insecurity.
Right, and the insecurity you're referring to is some of the fighting and attacks carried out by groups such as Al-Shabaab. And I was wondering about those people who are in areas that are besieged, if they then, in this instance, are basically, tragic as it is, condemned to die because you're unable to get to where they are, but they also are unable to leave because there's fighting.
Of course, and we do not even know in what condition these people are. So with our partners, many of which are Somali local NGOs, we're really pushing the boundaries, trying to reach out as far as we can, as far as security is able to allow us, so that we can reach these people where they are before they even sort of track off to these displaced camps that we are seeing mushrooming in their thousands right across Somalia.
An estimated 7.8 million people, I think, are affected by the drought in Somalia. In terms of the aid that is available, yes, UNICEF is present in the country, but is the aid able or sufficient to match the number of people who need it?
The needs are increasing, and they're increasing at a rapid pace, and we actually are having to really scale up our response so that we can reach as many people as we can. So where we think that we have adequate financing and resources to be able to reach people. However, what we're seeing on a daily basis is that the numbers just keep on rising, and so we constantly have to keep on revise our targets so that we can reach as many people as we can. This crisis is not going away anytime soon, and we anticipate that even going into next year, we will still need to receive funding that is important for us to continue to provide for the needs of people well into December next year.
The challenge, Victor, I'm not sure if you'll agree with, often with these protracted sets of conflicts or instability, is that at some point donor fatigue starts to set in, and we've seen less and less donor funding for many of the charitable work that's going on in troubled parts of the world post the pandemic, because, not even post because we're technically still in a pandemic, but countries don't want to give because they're focused on the needs of their domestic populations, for instance. How much does that worry you?
We are worried. Of course, we've been talking about this crisis in Somalia from as far back as November last year. And we saw, given the other crises that have emerged globally, including the war in Ukraine, the increase in food prices, which has put pressure on domestic economies, that preoccupied some of our major partners. However, in the last couple of months, they have stepped up in a big way, provided the funding that we've needed to be able to respond. So it is true indeed that there are many, many pressing priorities globally. However, the situation of Somalia is dire, and unless we continue to step up and receive the support that is needed, we may very well see a catastrophe here that we have not seen in decades.
Victor Chinyama, thank you for your time, Chief Communications Officer at UNICEF Somalia.